Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Monday, September 23rd. Today is day 353. I'm in South Korea at the Lausanne Congress, and the timing might be a little off, so there may be things that you hear the next day, but I wanted to let you know over the weekend, Israeli news outlet Haaretz reported that about 150 rockets, missiles, and drones were fired at Israel from Lebanon by Hezbollah over 24 hours. The IDF said that this is from yesterday, that it struck 290 Hezbollah targets between Saturday and Sunday. Hezbollah's deputy secretary general said the group had entered an open-ended battle of reckoning with Israel. Netanyahu said that half of the 101 Israeli hostages being held in Gaza were still alive. That's the highest number that we've heard in the past few months. There's been no progress in talks in terms of a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas within the last 2 weeks, according to the White House. In the West Bank, meanwhile, the Associated Press reported on Sunday that the Israeli military shut down the Qatari-based Al Jazeera office in Ramallah, ordering that the office be shut down for 45 days. It followed an order that happened in May, where the Israeli police raided the Al Jazeera broadcast position in East Jerusalem, where they seized equipment there, preventing the broadcast in Israel and blocking its websites. So Al Jazeera has been providing film, and then other stations and things have been using their films, but they've not been able to broadcast in Israel. And now they were shut down in the rest of the territories, in addition to East Jerusalem, for the next 45 days. This is the first time ever that Israel has shuttered a foreign news outlet operating in the country. Al Jazeera has continued operating in the West Bank after the East Jerusalem issue. But this is the first time this has ever happened where a foreign news service has been shut down. The Israeli military acknowledged conducting the raid, but alleged without providing any evidence, that's what the Associated Press said, that the newsroom was being used to incite terror, to support terrorist activities, and that the channels broadcast endanger security and public order. And I just want you to know, if the Associated Press is saying that, it's very clear from their reporting that the Israeli military is acting with impunity. Those are very, very strong words from a news source that's very credible. In Gaza, a new crisis is starting to emerge: flooding. In the Gaza Strip, it's the beginning of the rain season. As Cools starts to come in for the fall, we're already at another winter. We're already changing seasons again. We're like, it's on the horizon is what I mean. So as cool season starts, displaced Palestinians living in the Mawasi tent camp are struggling to cope with flooding that is exacerbating the humanitarian crisis. We know that there were additional deaths in Gaza. One of the incidents, over 7 people were killed in North Gaza at another school compound as it was hit in the last 24 hours. It's only about 1 o'clock in Israel right now, midday on Monday. That reports from Haaretz. The Israeli Defense Forces, you almost can hear, I feel like I say this every few days, if there was an attack on a school, what was there? They reported that militants had a headquarters there. Hezbollah Israel update: the Washington Post reported yesterday, Sunday, that Hezbollah's deputy leader, Naam Qassem, said Hezbollah has entered a new phase in its conflict with Israel, and its attacks on North Israel will only stop when there's a ceasefire in Gaza. The Lebanese Health Ministry reported Sunday that the death toll from Friday's Israeli strike in Beirut has risen to 50 people, and 11 people are still missing. And at around 6 p.m., that was about an hour or so ago, in South Korea here on Monday night, Israel announced a more extensive strike on Lebanon, saying that fighter jets struck 150 targets as Hezbollah urged citizens to evacuate. One can't help but wonder how long the news will keep repeating the refrain that there are fears of a broader Middle East conflict, but that's what the news is saying. At least 1 person was killed. Reuters reported that South Lebanon residents received phone calls urging them to stay away from Hezbollah posts. The calls ordered them to stay 1,000 meters away. That's about 3,280 feet from any post that's used by a Lebanese armed group, Hezbollah, according to Reuters in the south. The calls seemingly came from Israel. The spokesperson, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, issued a similar warning, saying that it was distributed in Arabic on all networks and platforms in Lebanon. The Israeli army has been asked if there are intentions to have a ground invasion into South Lebanon, and the response was, "We will do whatever is necessary." The IDF also reported that the Air Force intercepted a drone that was launched from Iraq into northern Israel's Golan Heights. There were no casualties. I'll just note that the Golan is considered occupied territory from Syria, but under President Trump, the US accepted its annexation. The Islamic resistance in Iraq claimed it launched a drone towards an IDF base. In Israel, despite the invasion, despite that Netanyahu invaded a question during a Knesset committee hearing yesterday about whether or not he intends to replace his defense minister, Gallant, Haaretz reported today, Monday, that the prime minister's close circle has not forsaken the attempt to still fire and replace Gallant. We do know, however, that the replacement will not, at least at this time, be Gideon Sa'ar, who said over the weekend that he will not move into that role because of the increased hostilities with Hezbollah in the north. And about 2 hours ago, I wrote this at about 6:30 p.m. in Seoul on Monday evening, which again would be like mid-morning in Israel. An IDF worker at an army training center in central Israel was shot after trying to stab a soldier. In the UN, on the way to the UN General Assembly is the Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, who told the state broadcaster that he plans to come to the UN General Assembly to deepen the dialogue with the West. This is very interesting, that Iran is hoping to mend the deep divides between Iran and the Western states. And the US House passes a bill to label products from settlements in the occupied West Bank as, quote, made in Israel. This legislation would lock in a Trump-era policy, making it harder to boycott goods from Israel, while endorsing illegal Israeli settlement activity if it moves forward completely. I also wanted to call your attention, so this is the final comment, and I just wanted to spend a moment on this. This is a conversation that's sweeping across the US in activist circles. It's this divide between increasingly progressive pro-Palestinian activist groups who are drawing a hard red line and are not willing to work with groups that include any Zionists. And however Zionism may be defined, I mean, some Zionists just define Zionism as acknowledging the state of Israel's right to exist. Now, other Zionists are very ardent, they would support settlements, etc. But there was an August 30th Haaretz article about Joshua Leifer, Leifer, the author of a book called Tablets Shattered. He was one of the first members of a Jewish activist group, very progressive, called If Not Now. Leifer had a book launch canceled in Brooklyn because the moderator of the event was going to be Rabbi Andy Bachman. So this Joshua Leifer arrived at the bookstore for this, book launch event, and there was a sign on the door that said the event was canceled because of unforeseen events. The author didn't know, and later, apparently, he found out from the employee overseeing the event. She told him, apparently, "We don't want a Zionist on our stage," referring to the rabbi. Now, Leifer, who is 30 years old, a doctoral student at Yale, writing his dissertation on the global transformation of Jewish politics during the Cold War. He's a board member at Dissent magazine. He's worked at the Israeli website 972, that's the area code in Israel, the American magazine Jewish Currents. He's written extensively about the occupation, leftist Jewish politics, and Zionism. He also is one of the early members of If Not Now, a Jewish activist group that significantly critiques Israel through progressive Jewish perspectives. So Joshua said the space is shrinking dramatically for progressive Jews who both oppose Israel's occupation of the West Bank and Gaza and its brutal conduct of the war, and are appalled by the way anti-Semitism has effectively been normalized in parts of the activist left. He said it in a follow-up call after the event's cancellation, days after being interviewed about the book. And I just wanted to make note, he's not wrong. That space is shrinking, it's disappearing, and it's important to understand that Zionism is not monolithic. And I'm not saying that one shouldn't be critical of it or critical of different streams of it or the effects of Zionism or the history of the movement. And I was really encouraged a couple of weeks ago. I was in a group that was focused on ending genocide in Gaza, identifying what's happening in the West Bank as apartheid. And they were talking about strategies of widening the circle, of finding allies that are committed to end goals, who maybe don't agree with ideologies. But I just would really encourage you to read this Haaretz article. And if you identify as a Christian, to pray and reflect. What role are Christians called to play in this moment in advocating for a comprehensive and permanent ceasefire and end to all violence, trauma, death, and destruction that we have been talking about literally every single day? Been doing these videos every single day, 353 days. Lord, have mercy. Go before us in our commitment to pursue justice and peace on behalf of Palestinians and all people in the Holy Land. In the name of Christ, amen.